My name is Matt Williams. I'm a science communicator and space journalist. I write for publications such as Universe Today and Interesting Engineering, and my articles have been featured in many other publications. I also work with a number of nonprofits such as Enterprise in Space and Mars City Design. And in the near future, I'll be starting a podcast series with one of my colleagues on the subject of space exploration in the solar system. And in my spare time, I'm a science fiction writer. And mainly what I like to do is do outreach with people and, yes, help promote education in the STEM fields, as well as, yes, astronomy, astrophysics, and space flight.
Awesome. Matthew Williams is our guest on this episode of my podcast, The Cosmos Chat. And today we are going to talk about life somewhere else. So, what do you think, sir? Do you believe that there must be an extraterrestrial life living somewhere else?
Well, yes, I do. And it's one of the things I like to write about most. And if your viewers are not familiar with the Fermi Paradox, this is the idea that, well, when we look out at the universe, it's so immensely huge. There's so many stars, so many planets, so many galaxies, and all the ingredients for life are out there everywhere. And the universe has been around for almost 14 billion years. And yet, well, from that, we assume that life must be out there. And yet we don't see any obvious evidence of it yet. And that's what's known as the Fermi Paradox. And it basically says, well, between these two things, there's got to be an explanation. And personally, I believe it is out there. We just haven't found it yet.
So the Fermi Paradox, it have many proposed solutions. So, what do you think of a solution to this paradox?
Well, I think the best answers I ever heard came from Carl Sagan, and there are a number of others who refined on what he said, and there's ideas like percolation theory and so forth. And what they argued is that, well, the universe is incredibly vast. The speed of light it imposes a severe limit on just how fast things can travel, and that includes messages. And given how difficult it would be to travel from one star system to the next, we can't assume anything about extraterrestrials expanding and colonizing, right? Because the people who would argue that, oh, there is no life out there because it would have been here by now, yeah, it's like that's a very, very, very huge assumption. And I think the best answer is that, yeah, traveling through space is very difficult. So even advanced life would probably only get so far. And but above all that, we don't know. We have no idea how long an intelligent civilization will live before it dies out of natural causes or becomes extinct or evolves into something else. As for extremely advanced life, well, chances are they've completely changed their perspective and their thinking, and they don't want to wander away from home. So yes, I guess my favorite theory is, if you can look it up, it's called Percolation Theory. And it's basically says that, yes, nobody migrates away from their home star system just like that, like in a big, even expansion. They will, yes, they'll get so far and maybe go a little further over time, but they may also encounter difficulties and fall back. And that's the reason why the evidence of extraterrestrials out there isn't obvious. If there are any that are advanced enough that they can travel through space and time easily enough, I would say that they're advanced to the point that we would not even know how to detect them. We wouldn't know what to look for.
As you said, this sounds like a promising solution, but there's one more solution which people found also promising. So this was the great filter. So this is the great filter theory. So according to this theory, there is a thing which every civilization destroys itself. We can see humans are on the earth, we can see like there are many problems like the global warming or like the nuclear weapons. These are the weapons like these could be the causes of our end,
Hmm.
of our end the future. So like this is made by us. So this theory says that every civilization like is like destroys itself, and like this could be the thing like there is the universe is not teaming up with alien civilizations. So this is
Hmm.
one of the promising solutions of this paradox.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it's that's I'm glad you mentioned that one. It is a very popular one because it manages to grab so many different ideas and bring it in. And I had the honor of speaking to Robin Hanson. He's the guy who proposed it originally, and he's written many papers since. So, well, what you said there is an absolutely correct interpretation of the Great Filter. Um, but the bigger idea, as he explained it, was that so if you think of life as having like 9 steps, right, from your uh, tiny microorganisms, single cell, the first life forms to exist, and right on up to stage 9, which is intelligent life that travels between star systems. Yeah, it's like, well, the the filter must fall somewhere in there. Now, it could fall at an early spot, which is to say that, well, maybe life just has a really hard time taking root, or the conditions that are favorable to life are not very common. Yeah, or that life has a hard time going from simple to complex, and that doesn't happen a lot. But yeah, the the famous great filter scenario that a lot of people are like right now is exactly that. Does intelligent life doom itself because, and of course, we're looking right at ourselves there, right? Do they destroy their environment because of all their technological growth? Do they destroy themselves because their weapons outgrew their wisdom? And that I think is a very realistic one too. It's one of my favorites, and I think it's probably the most realistic. Um, I like to believe though that it's like whereas some species will fail that test, others will make it out, right? So it's like evolution's test, right? We evolution gave us brains. Now we have to show that we can live with them without completely annihilating ourselves. So yeah, that is definitely a theory I keep looking to because it's definitely one of the best for explaining why we're in the state we're in. Knowing that others have gone through that and maybe survived is encouraging. Yeah.
So now what do you think like we humans need some we humans need some elements and like need some resources to like live upon. So like what do you think those extraterrestrial living somewhere else like in a different environment, yeah, on any different exoplanet
Mhm.
whose composition is like different from us, like would they need like the elements like the nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen and oxygen like us?
Mhm. Mhm. Very good question. And we don't really have any way of knowing right now, but and this is what is always so hard about looking for extraterrestrial life, just for the science of it, right? And we're now getting to a point where we will actually be able to do that for the first time. We never have before. So this, yeah, it's a very relevant question right now. All we know for sure is that life works with these elements, as we've seen here on Earth, right? Nitrogen is an essential one. Oxygen is too. Carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia. These are related to so many natural processes. And of course, yeah, carbon itself is the basis for life here on Earth. So we know that that works. So if we call that um, life model 1, we know how to look for that. So we will find it out there. But I think it is likely that life will exist under different chemical regimes because you look at Saturn's moon Titan. Yeah, it's like it is such a curious example. It's like this is a moon, it's distant from the sun, it's icy, but it's got all this prebiotic chemistry and it's got all this organic material on it, right? Because methane and hydrocarbons, there's carbon and hydrogen. It's the part of the building blocks of life. It's what our bodies decompose into. So, and it's got a dense nitrogen atmosphere. And it's like, yeah, it's colder than we think. We don't think life would normally be possible under those kind of cold conditions, but we want to go explore there for exactly that reason. Let's land on the surface. Let's dip into Kraken, Mare, and all the other methane lakes there, and try to see if we can't find something living there. And then, because if we do, that proves it. Like, methanogenic life exists. So if we know that, then we can look for planets out there in the extrasolar planets out there, and say that, yeah, if it's got a dense atmosphere of nitrogen and lots of methane and other hydrocarbons, and it's cold, we still think it could support life because we found examples of it. And yeah, who knows what else, but a lot of it's been theorized. What about, silica? What about nitrogen based life and other such things? It's like there's the limits. It's the only limit there is your imagination there. Yeah, and we don't know how to look for that yet because we never found life like that. So, and that too is another crazy thing about astrobiology and looking for life. You won't know exactly what to look for until you find it. How do you find it if you don't know what to look for? Well, you keep looking and hope you see the right kind of process, right? Yeah.
Like we humans are like constantly trying to like find aliens or like find something like very important which could help us in the hunt of aliens. Like
Mm-hmm.
many space telescopes, many rovers are like being sent into the space, like the Perseverance, the James Webb. So like, do you think that I think do you means do you have a planet in your mind like which could support life other than our Earth? Like it could be in our solar system or it could be an exoplanet. Like scientists believe that there are many planets in their mind, like Kepler 452b and Kepler 186f. Their
Yeah.
research, like they are so far from us, like we can only get the data from the transit from the telescopes and all, like Kepler space telescope we got it, so we can't get so much data about them, but like we can like somewhat like imagine the life there, and like whatever have we found like on the basis of that elements and all that we can find. So do you have any planet in your mind other than our Earth which could support extraterrestrial life?
Yeah. Within our solar system alone, I think that there is a strong possibility of there being life inside Europa. I think that if Titan doesn't have life on its surface or whatever, there's a possibility it has it in its interior, same as Enceladus. And there's so many what are called ocean worlds in our solar system there, where it's like, well, they've got the elements. We just need to go and check it out and prove it. As for extrasolar planets, yeah, I, I remain hopeful that Proxima b is habitable. Um, ever since it was first announced, there's been a lot of research and it's gone back and forth, right? Many have said, "Oh, this is a problem. The stars flare up too much, and the planet orbits too close, so the atmosphere would be blown away." But then we find out it's like, well, actually, the biggest flares happen from the poles, so the planet is spared. It's like, yeah, there's still lots of radiation, but if it's got a thick enough atmosphere, it can transfer heat around. There could be life. So I'm very hopeful that that's the case, because it would be wonderful to know that that the planet right next door is capable of supporting life, and that we could go there and from a safe distance, and so that we don't harm it, we could see what's there. And I have similar hopes for some of the TRAPPIST planets, because they are very impressive. And not sure what else. There are many candidates there, and I also love the Glias 581. That was yeah, for a long time, it was considered to be the best candidate there. It has one planet in its habitable zone, which is G. And yeah, I thought some friends and I were actually writing short stories about people who went there and what it looked like. So I remain hopeful for that too. Yeah, I think it would be really wonderful if rocky planets that orbit red dwarf stars, which are very common, could support life, because it would mean the universe is teeming with life. It might not always be complex, it might not always be advanced, but it would still be really incredible. Mhm.
So like some people are confused about this. Like, can there's a chance of living on a gaseous planet? Like, is there a chance of living there?
Well, not on, right? Because that's the thing. So are you talking about for life to exist in a guy? Well, yeah, there's a possibility that simpler life forms like microbes could live in the atmosphere of a gas giant. It's like at certain levels, the temperature and pressure is actually, about right for them to exist there. So we won't know for certain until we look closer into Jupiter's atmosphere or Saturn's. I'm thinking Saturn would be a better bet, just because Jupiter has got intense radiation going on in its atmosphere. It would be possible to live in orbit of gas giants if we're talking about us humans. You could build habitats that orbit around them in a nice safe distance there, and you get all the energy you need and all the resources you need from its nearby moons or asteroids, and even from the planet itself. You could tap the magnetic field to get energy. So yeah, if in fact we did that someday, if we built stations like that around Jupiter or Saturn, we could then look into the atmosphere with probes and see if there's in fact microbes in there, and that would be a huge find.
So now let's talk about humans. So,
Mhm.
do you think like the planets like Mars and Venus could they be transformed for humans, like
Yes.
using something like some resources and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, terraforming is it's I love the subject, right? And it is a huge undertaking. It's a massive undertaking, but it's like if humanity ever establishes all the space stations and outposts between Earth and the Moon, Mars, Mercury, Venus, and the asteroid belt, and even gets into the outer solar system, we would have all the resources we needed to terraform these planets. In It would still take centuries or more, but it could be done. And in fact, we have the technology to start doing that today. But yeah, it's a huge undertaking, and you got to be ready for this to be ongoing for a long time. But yeah, and it's funny too, because Mars and Venus, it's like if you want to terraform these planets, you're taking a complete opposite approach, right? Mars needs to be warmer, needs a thicker atmosphere, and its ice needs to melt and create liquid water on the surface, and all that, and it would help if it had some kind of magnetic field protecting it. Venus is the opposite. It needs to lose atmosphere. It needs to cool down, and it needs to convert so much of what it's got in its air into water, so it'll rain down and create this very ocean going planet. And it too, yes, it would be nice if it had a magnetic field. And yeah, and all of that can be done. It's like we have it in theory how to do that. It's just, yes, the time, the energy, the resources are huge. Mhm.
So like, how what do you think, like how life like occurred on Earth, like how abiogenesis happened on Earth? Like, do you have any idea? Like, do you have any idea? There are many proposed solutions to it. Like,
Mhm.
do you think of any idea which could be promising for this abiogenesis on Earth?
Yeah. Well, one idea that I've read that seems plausible, right? A lot of people in the scientific community believe this now. It's like if life did originate on Earth, and yeah, it happened in the oceans, it happened billions of years ago, and it probably happened around the hydrothermal vents on the sea floor, right? So all that geological activity in the planet's interior, right? It starts sending up heat and chemicals. And so, yeah, it's like the earliest life forms just kind of glommed around this and got all the energy and sustenance they needed. And they started to, migrating outwards and that. That I think is a very likely thing, and it opens up a lot of doors for finding life on other places. It's like any place that's got that water and hydrothermal activity, like a lot of moons in the solar system, could have life too. The other possibility, though, yeah, is that it came from it was due to panspermia. It came here from elsewhere, and that too seems very highly plausible. It would seem like then, okay, so life can travel all throughout the cosmos, but it needs to land somewhere, someplace that's got all the right characteristics, right? It's in the habitable zone. It can support water. It has an atmosphere. That too sounds very, very reasonable, but it does raise the question of, well, where did this life begin in the first place? And oh, wow, I just realized something there too. It could mean that, yeah, if life emerged as we know it, emerged on Earth indigenously, then it could mean that life is very diverse and takes on the properties of wherever it emerged, right? It used the local conditions and elements to create itself. Whereas if it's getting spread around by asteroids and comets and rocks and so forth, it could be it forms from the same chemical elements wherever it is. It could be that, yeah, all life in the universe is carbon based, and yeah, that's how it gets distributed by asteroids and dust. Oof. So yeah, one of those is probably the truth. And yeah, whichever one is true, it's going to have tremendous implications for us searching for life. Whew. Okay.
So what do you think about extremophiles, like tardigrades and all that? Could they live in space, or like any of our neighboring planets, like,
Mhm.
or could they help us in like studying about life somewhere else? Yeah, or could they help us in our hunt of extraterrestrials?
Yeah, yes, you said asteroids? In
No,
asteroids?
extremophiles.
Extremophiles, yes. Yes, yeah, sorry, the audio is cutting in and out there a bit. But yeah, absolutely, yeah. Extremophiles are what scientists or astrobiologists are often looking for, because they think, yeah, away from Earth's extreme environments still support life. And if that's the case, well, then, yeah, if we're looking at other extreme environments away from Earth that are just as hot, cold, acidic, and, just torturous, but the fact that certain organisms can live on Earth in those conditions would seem to indicate that they could exist elsewhere too, and that would definitely be a very, very a very good way to search for life, right? It's like we see environments that are extreme, don't assume they're barren. Look closer. Yeah. In terms of it is entirely possible too. Yeah, that extreme life could give rise to more complex life and maybe even intelligent life. It's hard to say, but we tend to assume that extremophiles have adapted to where they're living, and they don't produce different species there, right? They don't evolve to create other species because they're already adapted to that environment, right? It's like the species that will evolve will go elsewhere, they'll go into on land or colder water or what have you. So yeah.
So, like, what do you think about the alien abduction theories? Like, people say it's like the Hills alien abduction. Like, what do you think about them? Like, are they like speaking truth? Like, or they are like just lying for getting the publicity and all that?
Abduction, you said? Yeah. I, I have mixed feelings on that there, because there are of course many people who have told stories that that couldn't be confirmed, where there weren't other witnesses, even though they claimed there were, at least witnesses couldn't be found. And there were people who were friends in a group who said they witnessed something, and it became became a movie of the week and whatnot. And it's like, well, for a lot of people there is an agenda, but that doesn't rule out the possibility that abductions have happened. Yeah, it's like, from a scientific point of view, we have no evidence to support abduction claims, right? Nobody has found anything solid that would support what the people are saying. And yeah, usually when people come forward claiming there's proof, it's found to be easily explained and dismissed. So yeah, I think the idea of abductions is it's a lot like the idea that Earth has been visited by extraterrestrials, and it's something that we should take seriously. But yeah, but that doesn't mean well, we automatically believe it. It means, yeah, we're just waiting on some hard evidence, because I think a lot of people who believe in abductions, they think that scientists are cynical, or people who are saying, yeah, there's no evidence, are cynical. It's like that's not true. It's like, I think many of us would like to believe that this was the case, but yeah, we have to keep we have to keep things in perspective.
So now, at last, do you want to say something about our emerging space technology, our emerging technologies, like which we are using in space and all that, like our telescopes and all that? Do you want to say something about them?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, right now, the James Webb Space Telescope, as you're no doubt aware, yeah, they're finalizing all their preparations there. They've been, adjusting all their mirrors and making sure everything's fully deployed. They're in their proper orbit. And very soon, we are going to be able to see some of the earliest periods in the universe, the first galaxies and stars forming, and we're going to be able to take a direct look at exoplanets and see what their atmospheres are composed of from the heat they're radiating. And so a lot of people are excited about that. What I'm also excited about is that there's also a lot of ground-based telescopes that are going to be able to do very similar things. And James Webb is the first of many. There's multiple missions that are going to do that. And the Nancy Grace Roman is a very wonderful one there too. It's like, between those two telescopes, the Nancy Grace Roman is going to be able to spot exoplanets by the tens of thousands, and the James Webb Space Telescope is going to be able to characterize them. Not as fast, but it's going to be able to do a very good job. So those will answer some of the most fundamental questions and mysteries that we've been just dealing with for decades and waiting to learn about. And actually, not even decades, long before that. It's only been in the past few decades that we knew what the mysteries were, right? So like dark matter, dark energy, and so forth. Other than that, I think that I'm very hopeful for the way that, well, commercial space is one thing, but the way nonprofits and just public or groups like your own, for example, the way that they're stepping up to make sure that our future in space, it's not run by governments alone. A handful of space programs that are competing with each other, like in the Cold War. It's not going to be run by billionaires who are just looking to do all kinds of adventure tourism. It's going to be it's going to be a trade-off, that there's going to be government, there's going to be law in space, there's going to be commercial ventures, and there's going to be public and educational ventures. So it's like, yeah, we're taking all of humanity out there in this common effort there, and yeah, there's a lot of plans for just the next few decades, and I'm very excited to think about that and hoping to see them.
Sir, I must say you answered all the questions very like amazingly. Like I
Thank
enjoyed so
you.
much. And did you enjoy the question?
Thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed this too. And in fact, I was looking at your foundation here, Nebula Space. And yeah, I'd like to stay in touch with you guys because I'd like to do an article about you and what you're doing here. It's very it's very related to some stuff I've been talking about recently. And yeah, my colleague and I, when our podcast is up and running, I'd like to I'd like to have some of you guys on there.
Sir.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm writing a book on extraterrestrial. So do you have some suggestions like what to write in it? Like some
Oh.
sections. Can you like give some suggestions to me?
Well, yeah. So yeah, I would say one of the most oh I wouldn't know where to start here. There's so much. In fact, well, actually, I have your email, so I will I'll send you like are there any are you looking for suggestions for books or just general ideas or both? Because I can,
Like both. Like I'm
yeah,
trying to like make a book on extraterrestrial, like which can contain like something like people's want to know,
yeah,
like some solutions to the paradox and something
yeah,
like I'm also confused about like there are many concepts in like extraterrestrials. That's why I was
yeah.
also confused what to write in it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I can recommend a lot, and I would say, um, in terms of the resolutions, right? It would be good to give sort of a brief rundown on like the different sort of schools of thought, like they're out there but they're hiding, or they're out there but they're preventing us from noticing them, or we don't know what to look for because anybody who's out there has been out there long enough there knows how to, well, they're evolved beyond what we'd recognize. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to we just don't know. And so we can't rule anything out, and we shouldn't. So yeah. In fact, and Carl Sagan said this there. He was arguing with the people who are saying nobody's out there. He said that the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. And as another colleague of mine said too, it's like, well, we have no idea really, when you think about it, what we're looking for. We're looking for something that, we imagine we would look like if we were doing that. It's the same, just looking for life in general. We're looking for life as we'd recognize it. We're looking for technology as we'd recognize it. And if we're thinking about advanced spacefaring species, we're imagining, yeah, we're thinking, well, what would we do there? And we haven't even gotten to that point in our development, so we don't really know what we would do there. But yeah, it's like, it's good to bring things back to, we don't know, we have to keep looking. And yeah, other than that, and yeah, to keep being imaginative, because it's like, and this is another thing that blows my mind about the Fermi Paradox and extraterrestrials. It's like, if we can think of it, and we know that the science is sound and correct, if we can think of it, then chances are somebody's already done it. So that is a helpful way to look for extraterrestrial intelligence. It's like, well, what would we do? Again, or what could we do if we just had the right resources and power? And if we find that, yeah, that works on paper, it totally works, then it's like, well, let's look for it out there because somebody probably built it. Yeah,
Thanks a
does
lot,
kind
sir.
of,
I
yeah, yeah.
will keep your suggestions in mind. Like you said something like amazing. Like I could get like I get some idea of what I'm going to write in the book. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Anyway, yeah, stay in touch, and I'll reach out there because I'd like to learn more about your organization. I really like what I saw when I looked at it there, and yeah, love to talk to you guys some more. All right.
Like
So like, wait a second. I don't usually talk about someone's character, about someone's like how he talked to me and all that. But like to now, I want to like tell you about the William sir. Like I didn't feel anything like, he's just professional. He's in this field for many years, and like in the whole meeting, I was just comfortable. I didn't feel how like how professional he is and all that. He just like um, talked to me comfortably, and I also talked to him, and like just friends. I'd asked questions, he answered them, and like he's like from his talks and all that, we were in contact from like last 5 to 6 days, and in the messages too. Like he was such a supportive guy, and I enjoyed much to like discuss with him. Like I want to tell you about one thing. Like when I uh, told him, like when we were sending, like when he was sending me the recording, as I was unable to record the meeting because of some issues. So when he was sending me the recording, like he said, "You're gonna be a rock star, kid." And like I was, he said also that you can quote me on that, and I thought I should tell something about him to all of the viewers who are watching this. Like I'm just very grateful because I think you have like watched the whole video, and you must know that I'm writing a book on extraterrestrials. And because of this meeting, I got something great to write in the book. I got some suggestions. Like he also cleared some of my doubts about many topics of related to extraterrestrial, and I like got to know more about life. Life is like one of the most complex things. Is one of the most complex things in this cosmos. Like it's shaking the whole science community, whole cosmology community. So like I this meeting helped me a lot, and I'm like grateful to you, sir. Really, really thank you to join the meeting, and like I enjoyed so much, and it was one of like I can say I had many meetings before, with many peoples, with my colleagues on Nabila and all that, but I think this was one of my best meeting, and I got so much to write about extraterrestrials and all that. I cleared many doubt. He cleared my doubts, and like so basically I just wanted to record this extra. Like you can't see the video here, you're just like listening the audio. So I just wanted to record this thing because I think I should also talk about him, like what is my personal experience on talking about him. And I can say he's a real science communicator, and like he promotes science education. Thank you.